Hey there riders, Motojourno Chris here today, and I'm having a quick look at the Yamaha WR250R. And you will note that this is not a bog standard WR250R. This has got some extras on it which make it look a little bit different. Pretty cool if you ask me. But I just wanted to have a quick chat about it because to me, obviously, if you're looking for an off-road bike and an everyday bike, generally speaking, a lot of people are going to default to having two bikes. But I think for a lot of young people, they just need a bike that does everything. And that's where the WR250R comes in. The WR250F, in comparison, is a much more highly strung machine, which requires a lot more upkeep. This is more suitable as an everyday ride that you can take out and do a bit of off-roading on as well. And that's particularly true of it with the extras that this one's got fitted, but I'll talk more about that later. I just wanted to have a quick chat about the WR250R now because I've been riding it in very much the suburban conditions, so kind of what you do as an everyday commuter. Now the reason I wanted to have a chat about the WR250R is because I reckon it's an ideal option for someone who's looking for a little bit of everything from a starter perspective. And now obviously I'm pretty inexperienced as far as off-road riding, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to grab a bike which I could start building on those skills and also which I'd be able to ride on the road. I don't have a trailer, I don't have a ute, I have to ride the bike anywhere it goes. Here in New South Wales, the bikes that you ride on public land have to be road registered anyway, so there's not that much of a comparison point there. That's just a requirement unless you only ride on private land, which is probably more for people with a farm or people who trailer their bikes absolutely everywhere to like the ride parks. But for an everyday rider, and especially a new rider who wants something that's off-road and road, I was really impressed with this so far on the road side of things because I've done all the commuting duties. I've done about 3 one-hour commuting trips through Sydney, top speed of about 100 kilometers an hour in a couple of sections, and this bike is a great thing to commute on. I'm really surprised. Obviously, it's not going to be quite as easy as a little, like 250 or 300 super sport styled machine like the R3, but it was so much more capable than I was expecting. I was going in and it's got kind of these are more a road biased knobby tire, but at the same time I was kind of going in, I was thinking, how is this bike going to handle the everyday riding around? Because I know, having been on some of the bigger bikes with knobby tires, can be a bit disconcerting. This thing has got a really tall seat height at 930 mils. The one thing to keep in mind, it's got 270 millimeters of travel front and rear, and jumping on board the seat, it does come down a little bit, but throwing a leg over it's quite tall. It's a tall bike overall, but 134 kilos wet. It's quite a light machine. Unlike a lot of the larger style adventure bikes, you don't really feel like it's a super top heavy bike. That weight is carried quite low. It's a very light machine overall, very easy thing to handle. So the main thing a new rider is going to have to keep in mind is that the bike is tall, but I wouldn't say it's particularly heavy. However, as a really new rider, this is one thing I do say quite often, your first bike's going to be a little intimidating no matter what. But if you're coming from a background of someone who's riding, who has ridden smaller, like the fun bikes, and has moved up through those kind of ranks, and now they're jumping on something that's going to be their first kind of road bike, you'll probably find this thing an absolute cinch to ride. It'll be so easy for you because you've got all that experience. For someone who's totally new, I think the taller seat height is going to make it a little bit of more of a challenge. I'm 180 centimeters. I can get a foot down flat just shifting my weight across. I can get the balls of my feet down pretty easily sitting square on the seat. I find it very easy to handle, but I'm a more experienced rider, and I don't want a brand new rider to take my experiences to mean that they will just be able to jump on and it's going to be the most perfect thing ever. That's probably not going to be the case. It is taller, but it's a very easy machine to handle. Like I said, it's really light. It does have a little bit of a fast kind of fall onto the side of the tire once you get past a certain point. If you're in the kind of more middling section of the tire, it's pretty normal of a road bike, but then it's got a much more rapid kind of fall off as you get right out to the sides of the tires. But I still think it's quite confidence inspiring as far as a road bike. It's nice and light, it's an easy thing to steer. That single cylinder engine is really nice. First gear is really short, you can start it in second gear. It's got a good bit of performance if you really give it a bit of throttle, and with a single cylinder engine, it's just a matter of really just giving it some throttle and upshifting as you need. There's not much complexity to it. It'll also downshift through the gears with a bit of a blip on the throttle really nicely, nice and smoothly. As I said, you normally get out of first gear really quickly because it's quite a short gear. There's just no way getting around that. And brakes are good for the road. Obviously, I've only ridden it in the dry so far, but like I said, I've been really impressed. Like, I do a freeway ride for a large part of my commute, and so I'm gonna have to test it on the freeway, but I don't think freeway is gonna be the primary thing you'd ever be looking at doing on this bike. However, it'd easily do the 80 or 90 back roads that are the alternate route I could take to get there, and I'm going to be interested to test it out for that. And again, like, I think if you wanted a good suburban commuter for those 60 to 80 kilometer an hour commutes, you're going to be really happy with this. And what I'm going to test out next is the off-road side of things. Basically, from a new rider perspective, I guess. I'm not a new rider, but from like a first time or a fairly inexperienced off-road rider perspective, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this handles that, what I can do, and I'm going to be looking at doing some training courses as well. So there's going to be a full review on this bike at bikereview.com.au, and this, like I said, it's just my first impressions. I'm really impressed with the bike. It's a lot easier to ride and a lot more inviting than I expected, despite that tall seat. And we'll just have a really quick look at the additions on this bike. Now, as you can see here, this has got Tenere WR250R written on it. This was meant to be ridden on the Tenere Tragics Ride, and as a result of that, it did have some non-standard accessories added. It's got the Barkbusters, as you can see here, which is great for off-roading, a bit of hand protection from the elements and from riding, in dense bush and things like that. Obviously, it's got a heap more wind protection, and that fairing is essentially tank or chassis mounted, so you're taking a bit of weight off the forks, taking that headlight off. Obviously, it does mean the headlight does not move as you kind of steer the bike. And you've also got the larger Safari tank on it as well, which has also got these cool stickers to make it stand out. And obviously, as you can see here, it's got the Tenere WR250R written on it. However, it's obviously not that particular model. That's a bit of a styling exercise. You've also got that rack on the rear, which gives you a bit of transport opportunity for putting some stuff on the back there, which is always good. And as you can see here, it's just a cool looking machine, really. It does look like a small Tenere, and as I said, it's a fun thing to ride so far. I've been really impressed with those first impressions. Of course, now I need to take it off road and see how I go there, and hopefully not crash my brains out. And obviously, I think for a lot of people, if they're looking for their first bike and they want this kind of compromise with something that is capable for the everyday commute, and also obviously as well for the off-roading, this could be what you are looking for. These aren't the cheapest bikes. I mean, coming from a road bike background, we do have some very kind of cheap price-wise expectations. Obviously, these are a little bit more expensive. This is 8.3 plus on road costs here in Australia. That'll vary overseas, of course, and that's a little bit more expensive than you'd pay for, say, Yamaha R3. But at the same time, this is kind of doing two jobs instead of one, and so you can kind of see where that's coming from. It does have adjustable forks. There's some adjustability on the rear as well, which is hidden away in there. Good brakes. You've got plenty of grip there on those foot controls. And as I said, a really cool overall machine. Anyway, that's my first impression of Yamaha's WR250R. I will be back with plenty more updates. If you've got any questions, just let me know. And like I said, that's a really just simple look at it. Don't forget to sub, hit that notification bell. Let me know what you think. Do you like the Tenere 250R look on the WR250, or would you go a bog standard one? Stay safe out there, and I will be back soon.